Uh-oh, let me get my agenda. Well, we're all here for roll call. Now, do we have any public comment? We will have comment after the study session regarding the Sherwin-Williams site. So if seeing none, I would ask for Charlie, are you ready to go to work?
Yes, we are ready.
Come up and talk about Sherwin-Williams.
Senior Planner Miru Desai will make the
Oh.
staff
Hi, Maru,
presentation,
how are you?
followed by a presentation from the applicant.
Good evening, Mayor Brinkman, council members. So this is a study session on the Sherwin-Williams Urban Village project. I'm sure you're familiar where the site is. It's an 8.5-acre site, and it was a former Sherwin-Williams paint factory, which ceased its operations in mid-2006. The site was remediated in January of this year, and there are no restrictions on the type of land use other than a deed restriction regarding the soil extraction and groundwater extraction and any other site activities that may interfere with the installed remedial features. So this is the site development plan. Just to get you oriented, we have Horton on the top, Sherwin on the side. This is the railroad track. This is the Rifkin parcel owned by Novartis, and this is the site of the Horton Landing Park. So the way they have organized the site is around the central green. And then you have another plaza area, and the parcels are organized around that. Parcel A is actually to accommodate the existing building, which will remain. It's a Tier 1 significant building, and that will be an office building. So just to give you the uses, so parcel A, the existing building will be office. It's about 70,000 square feet and about 35 to 37 feet in height. Parcel B here, just below it, will accommodate about 220 units, and there will be ground floor retail of about 12,000 square feet. Parcel C here will accommodate 150 units and will be a residential at this point. It'll be a residential only building. Then you have the parcel D here, which will be a taller building up to a height of 100 feet and will accommodate 90 units. These two buildings here will reach the highest height of about 85 feet. This is sort of the circulation plan. As you can see, it's mainly Horton Street and Sherwin Avenue. That will be the main access points to the site. And the arrows kind of show how the various garages would be accessed at this point. This is a bird's eye view, and it's an illustrative massing view of the site. And just to get you oriented again, this tower that you see is the Rifkin site, and it's not a part of this project. It's only shown for illustrative purposes. So right now it's a vacant surface, it's a surface parking lot, and what they're showing here is an entitled but not built 200-foot tower. So that's just for illustrative purposes. So the tallest building on their site would be at the northern end, and that would reach a height of 100 feet. The remainder buildings, as you can see, they are kind of not the same height, but these two will reach at their highest 85 feet. Of course, this is the existing residential.
75 feet.
75 feet, sorry.
Yes.
So this is the existing building at Sherwin site.
Can you just tell me how high the existing building is as a?
It is it's 37 to 40 feet.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to explain how the site conforms to our existing land use policies. This is the land use designation map. As you can see, the site is split into two zones. The green is the public and open space, and the remainder brown is MUR, or the mixed use with residential. As the site is over 5 acres, a planned unit development permit is required. And in the MUR district, it requires a mix of uses, one of which must be residential. And as I mentioned, one of them, it's primarily a residential complex. The regulations do not specify an exact mix, and the mix is to be determined by the Planning Commission and the Council. So the mix that is proposed is 460 residential units with 70,000 square feet of office and 15,000 square feet of retail. And the net developable area on the site is a little over 5 acres. In terms of residential density, what is permit, it lies in the 85 units per acre by right, which can be increased to 100 units per acre with bonus. What they're proposing is 86.8 units per acre, and this calculates to them needing at least 12 bonus points in terms of public benefits. In terms of floor area ratio, the allowed is 2 by right, which can be increased to 3 by bonus with bonus. Proposal is at 1.8, and therefore that is an FAR that is allowed by right. Okay. Height. So the height districts are split. The northern end allows a higher heights. By right is 75, which can be increased to 100 with bonus. And the southern portion is falls in 55 feet by right and increased to 75 feet with a bonus. In terms of their proposals, parcel B and C, as I mentioned, they reach a height of up to 75 feet, whereas the building on D reaches a height of 100 feet. So it will need to provide public benefits worth 100 bonus points. In terms of bonus points, I'm not sure why this is sticking. Okay. As I'd mentioned, the project needs bonus points in 2 categories. One is the residential density, for which it needs 12 points, and the other category that it needs is 100 points, which is in the height category. So the way it works, we do not add 100 plus 12 and to make it 112. We take the maximum category in which the project needs the maximum bonus points, and in this case, it's the height. So that will be the number of points that the project will need. So it's 100 bonus points that is required for this project with the proposal on the books right now. The project does reuse a significant building, and that straight away qualifies the project for 35 points. So a remainder of 65 points will be needed. So in terms of potential sources of bonus points, these include a variety, and I'm just highlighting some of the potential ones which might be applicable to this site. One is the development of a public park, which is worth up to 50 points. The other could be providing public parking, worth up to 35, providing family-friendly housing, again up to 50 points, public improvements, which are outside what would be normally be required, such as improvement of Hubbard Street between Park and Sherwin Avenues. So this is public improvements which does not front the project site, and it is in addition to that. Or they could assist the city in acquiring and cleanup of a parcel which is part of phase 2 of the Horton Landing Park, and that could be one way of providing public benefits for bonus points. So in addition to a public park of approximately 2 acres that they need to provide, since a portion of their land use designation is open space, the general plan also calls for the greenway to traverse this parcel to connect between the Horton Landing Park to the north and the Park Avenue District or the Bay Trail to the south. The project does provide 2 acres of open space in form of the central green and the plaza area. And in addition, the project includes the design and construction of a park on the city-owned parcel adjacent to the railway road, and the extension of the greenway from the Horton Landing Park to Sherwin Avenue. The project, in terms of project review, the project has been reviewed by a number of committees, including the Staff's Development Coordination Committee, or the DCC, as well as BPAC. There was a community meeting held on October 16th. The Planning Commission reviewed it in the last month, in October 24th, and in this month, actually we're in December, so in last month. So last month there were 2 more meetings at the Park Avenue District Advisory Committee, and then again at Parks and Recreation Committee. All the comments have been outlined in the staff report. So I will not be presenting all the comments other than the Planning Commission's comments, and only the key ones at that. So the Planning Commission felt that the proposed mix of uses was acceptable, although it was a little heavy on the residential use. The commission felt that the active uses in form of commercial or live workspaces should be accommodated on both sides of the central green. They felt that the parcels were too big and needed to be broken up. They also felt that there needed to be an alternative approach to the garages should be considered. This was, I suppose, was a response to about a number of residents from 1500 Park Avenue who spoke at the Planning Commission study session and who suggested that their preference would be for an alternative approach to the garages, which would be a driveway that would hug the railroad track and connect to Halleck instead of using Sherwin Avenue. It was also suggested that the buildings be no taller than 7 to 9 stories on the northern end and 6 stories for the rest of the site. And there was a desire to see building designs that were modern and industrial in look with a use of brick and steel rather than multicolored stucco buildings that we have in our city. And there was a desire to see more family-friendly and mixed-income housing units. They also suggested that the applicants should work on their TDM measures now so that they could be analyzed as part of the traffic study. Typically, these measures get finalized at a later stage of, at a more later stage of the process, typically right before the building permit. In terms of environmental review, staff has hired, is in the process of hiring LSA associates to conduct the environmental analysis. Permits that will be required is a PUD and a general plan amendment, and the project will require approval from both the Planning Commission and the City Council. I believe there was a request to sort of walk you through how the application will proceed. So right now, we are in the preliminary development plan process, and we are right here. And we are in the pre-application stage, and we are at the City Council study session. So what has happened in the pre-application are the variety of different meetings from different bodies, including BPAC, Parks and Rec, and as well as Planning Commission. So the next step would be for the applicant to make a formal submittal, and then we would do an environmental review and draft conditions of approval, write a staff report, and then that will go to the Planning Commission for their recommendation to the council, and then the council will have 2 readings. One, because it's an ordinance, we are going to be establishing a PUD, so that requires an ordinance, so 2 meetings are needed. So it will be 2 meetings at the City Council. Once that is completed, the applicant will come back for what would be called the FDP, or the Final Development Plan for individual, oops. Let me see, everything. Yeah, there you go. So for individual buildings, for each individual building, they will need what is called a final development permit. It is sort of like a super-sized design review, to make it simple. And again, the process is kind of similar. There's a pre-application stage. Typically, we may be doing a community meeting at that time, and then it'll go to the Planning Commission for a study session. Once that is done, they will apply formally for their FDP application, and then we would draft conditions of approval, and will then go to the Planning Commission for a public hearing. The FDPs will not come to the council unless they get appealed. So that's basically the steps that this project would take. So we are asking for your comment and direction on specifically the following issues. Is the proposed mix of use appropriate for the site? Is the proposed siting of the parcels and buildings acceptable? Is the proposed circulation and layout of the streets appropriate for the site? What type of open spaces does the council wish on the site? What public benefits does the council prefer for the project? And of course, any other issues or issues that you may want to give us, or comments you may want to give us. So that concludes my presentation. The applicant does have a presentation, and they will give you some little bit more details about their project. So if there are any questions at this time, I'll be happy to answer them, or otherwise I will hand it over to the applicant.
Why don't you let the applicant come up and speak, and then,
I have a question for Maru.
what's that?
Maru, explain to me where is there an EIR on this process?
Where? When or where? Oops.
No, how is this process involved with the EIR?
That's what I was going to show you. Where in the process the environmental analysis will take place? Is that the question?
Where is an EIR on this process?
We have not started it. We are in the process of hiring LSA.
And we're anticipating that it will not be an EIR, but rather that it will be what's called a mitigated negative declaration, initial study mitigated negative declaration, because the project is consistent with the general plan, and we did an EIR, citywide EIR on the general plan. So the intent is to tier off of the general plan EIR and only analyze the site-specific impacts of this project in a mitigated negative declaration.
Thank you.
So the part of traffic report, visual simulations would be part of it, and typically it'll occur when they apply, make an application, and so next thing that will happen is the environmental review.
I should point out, though, that although it's not as lengthy or detailed as an EIR, a mitigated negative declaration is still published for a 30-day public review and comment period and includes an analysis of all of the various potential areas of impact that the project may have.
Okay. Anything else, Nora? Okay. The applicant?
Good evening, Mayor Brinkman, members of the council. I'm Joe Ernst with SRM Ernst Development, and on behalf of my partners, we want to thank you for the opportunity to present our vision for this project. We'd like to start by saying that we do understand the importance of this project to the community, to the council, and especially to those neighbors who are adjacent to the project. We do believe it will contribute significantly to the benefit, to the vibrancy of the neighborhood, and achieving many of the goals, both of the community and of the Park Avenue district. The image of the site that you have in front of you, shows the site as it was when in operation up through 2006, when Sherwin proceeded to decommission and demo the plant ahead of their remediation. The remediation was completed in 2012 with the off-haul of 150,000 tons of soil. And as Maru mentioned, it did receive no further action status from the DTSC. There is a land use covenant in place that does not have any use restrictions, but it does require that we monitor and maintain existing remedial features in place, and that we have to coordinate our plan to build around those, that we can't disturb them. Our plan, let's see, well, let me go to this back slide. Our plan, too, has some history. We started with this plan. It evolved over a period of time from 2003 to 2005 through many meetings with the community at that time. We met several times with the Park Avenue Committee, who was meeting on a regular basis, and we went through 2 Planning Commission and study session. Many aspects of this plan, we believe, were incorporated into the current general plan, and our current plan that we're presenting has been further updated to be compliant with the general plan. And tonight we will share with you some updates to that plan that also incorporate some further feedback we've recently received from the community. Some of the key objectives as we, how do I go back here? So this is the general plan slide here, and all of these elements, in the general plan are incorporated in our project. Some of the key objectives and our features in the plan, one of the things we wanted to feature was diversity of uses, creating both day and nighttime populations, diversity in open spaces. In addition to the 2.0 acres of open space zoned on the site, we're actually going to have about 3 1/4 publicly accessible acres of open space on site. And when you add that to the city park parcel that we propose to improve, that brings it up to about 5.2 acres of open space. So we have equal open space to developable area, developable parcels on the plan. And that's going to give us the opportunity to really define the different areas of intended use for these open spaces and avoid conflict of open spaces. The building design will have diversity as well. We're engaging 4 different architects to promote more of an organic feel to the project and promote that finer grain by having different looks, different buildings. Beneficial development. We know this is something that's important to the council, many members in the city. We do plan to pursue the full development bonus, which obviously includes creating community benefit, but that's for height. That will step back from the existing edges of Sherwin and Horton, but not increased above the base density. So we, again, pursuing the full bonus for height, but not for further increases in density above the base. Some of these things may include, of course, the rehab of the Tier 1 building, the development of on-site public park space, improvement of the city park parcel, assisting the city to acquire the remaining railroad parcel that will better link Horton Landing Park and the Greenway with our site, traffic calming measures on Horton, which we'll show later with our updated plan, a robust TDM plan, and family-friendly housing. The TDM plan that we are developing will include easy passes, a combination of easy passes, will include car share. It will include an effort to get an Emery go-round stop in the project, shared parking, and bike amenities. Family-friendly housing. Over 55% of our program is 2-bedroom or more. Over 10% of our program is 3-bedroom or more. On 460 units, that's pretty significant in terms of those types of units. And we're aware of the configuration of those units as presented by the
Could
city.
you repeat that percentage on the 3-bedroom?
10%. We will continue to support the bike pedestrian access, both on-site and on Horton, and Boris Dramoff, our planner, will discuss that a little later. Labor goals. We've had discussions with many of you, and we share with you similar values when it comes to wages and local hire. As we discussed, and I think we generally agreed that, we're willing to engage in those discussions, and we are looking for, a process that is flexible, that doesn't put us at a competitive disadvantage, that focuses on the triple bottom line, both sustainability, social, and financial performance for the parties involved. And lastly, retail is something that's been a big issue for certainly the adjacent neighbors. We've talked at length about that. We've received a lot of feedback on the type of uses. This will be neighborhood serving retail, things the local community will want and support. And we would like to announce that we have reached agreement in principle with our first tenant, if you will. It's with the group Alameda Bicycle. The owner is Gene O, who's here. Gene also, his shop, he's a very successful shop. It's heavily focused on the commuter and the family. Gene also runs all of the bike stations for BART and Caltrain, and also does some consulting for projects to develop bike programs as part of TDM programs. So, his vision is a bike cafe, which at its heart is a bike shop, but also include a cafe with coffee, microbrews, wine, some food. It's part coffee shop. It's part bike shop with communal repair benches and a commuter focus. It's part cultural hotspot. I'm reading from his business plan here, with guest authors and artists. And Gene is here tonight, so if you have questions, you certainly can ask him more about that. With that, I'd like to turn this over to Boris Dramoff, our planner from Roma, to walk you through our plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe, and good evening. Boris Dramoff from Roma Design Group. It's a pleasure to be here. I got to figure out how to change this. That's the only. How do I change this? Push down?
Click the left button.
Oh, the left.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, there we go. Well, we began working on this project 10 years ago and really developed a vision for the site with Sherwin-Williams and Joe and Bruce for the project, which went through, as Joe was saying, through quite a bit of review, comment, integration with ideas in the community. And unfortunately, it took almost that period of time from them till today to demolish some of the existing buildings on the site, clean it up, and really get it ready. So these projects do take quite a bit of time, but here we are again, taking another look at it. Some changes did come forward as a result of that process. There were some reductions in height that were suggested in the general plan, and those were integrated into the current schemes, but the vision for the area was to create a very special place in the heart of Emeryville, a place that would really be a unique gathering space, something that exists in part in many different areas, but this would be an addition that would really be very special. And I'll get into that a little bit more. As Joe mentioned, we are keeping Building 131, and that will be used as a commercial building. It is very interesting because it'll be a record of the past that was here, and yet an evolution into the future as well. So we're very pleased with that decision. We are also very interested in the extension of the Horton Landing Park through the site, and we've been looking, this is the scheme that was developed by the city for that, and to orient you, this is Horton Street right here, and this is the edge of the Sherwin-Williams site at this end, so the connection through here, to that end. So this is really part of the project and an important consideration. And in fact, how do we get the pedestrian bicycle connections through the project? And, in a lot of the discussions, we started off with some very specific routes, but as we heard more from the community, we really started developing multiple ways in which pedestrians and bicycles could move through the site and extend the feeling of the greenway through the area as well. So, going back to the first isometric type drawing that we prepared for this phase of the work, which responded to the changes that had occurred during the general plan amendment process, which did incorporate the basic idea, but really modified, as I mentioned, particularly height, and some of the mix of uses was made more specific. But the circled areas on this drawing shows some of the areas that through the process thus far with the Planning Commission and the Community Recreation and Parks Commission, we have started to develop some alternatives. In particular, I think there were some issues about both the way in which these buildings approached Sherwin and whether there could be more limited vehicular access from Sherman Street. So we have tried to address that, and I will show you in a minute our response. In addition to that, there was quite a bit of discussion about whether it was better to create the trade in the open space, which was provided for in the general plan, and put this building towards the north end of the parcel, or move it forward into and create more of a end to the central green, and then extend the open space in the Horton Landing on this side. So I'll show you a little bit more on that. So we started with this scheme in here, with parcel D being at the north end. And then through a lot of the discussion, there seemed to be quite a bit of interest in creating that more intimate space around this central green, and then extending the Horton Landing open space, and then extending it through the project as well. So, that's a consideration, and certainly we'd like to hear your point of view about it, but we're sort of heading towards this approach rather than the former one that was developed. If you look on this end, we're also looking at a reduction in height to 55 feet along the frontage, and we've eliminated the vehicular access on this side of the street as well. We've created some alternate access within the project into the parking areas, which we believe will also help in terms of the commercial development on the frontages of the site as well, because it'll make it easier to reach them. So if you look at this is the revised site plan again for the area, and what we've done is we've designated a reduction in height. We had already considered it along Horton on parcel B2, but we also put it along this edge as well and made some modification to the circulation in that area. We've also, I do want to point out one thing. We're drawing parcels right now. We're not drawing the buildings, although there are some edges that have been changed as starting points. These are not the final massing of the buildings, and that is part of what will follow in this process. These are just the parcels within which. So there aren't solid buildings in here. There's going to be open space that's part of the residential development, and that has to be evolved further, and they're going to be developed. So these are not buildings. These are parcels right at the moment, but it is a starting point for us and a way in which we've distributed the program. Now, in terms of circulation, and this is updated from where we were before, certainly there's going to be a direct bikeway connection along the edge, because that's, people had asked for that, make a direct connection along this edge. But we have also said that bikeways, you can ride your bike through the central area and as well. And certainly we want pedestrian linkages on both sides through the center of the project, but we also want to create the vehicular linkages. We're, here off of Horton and into the parcels. And we did keep one access off of Sherwin into parcel B1, and then we have the internal access to the parking. I'm talking about to the parking garages. So we've tried to diversify all the entrances, and there's certainly one to parcel D as well through here. We have indicated the diversion that has been discussed in this area to not permit through traffic. This is a city idea, really, that has come up, and that we have indicated that it could be incorporated quite well into the project, and therefore only bicycles would come through, and of course pedestrians would come through here. There are 2 garage entrances in this area, and we'd have to provide limited access to them. But basically it is this kind of diversion that has been talked about in this area to reduce the traffic flow through it. So we've tried to do that as well, and certainly there would be pedestrian access throughout. And we do have a mews also here between the existing building, 131 on Parcel A, and this building. But this mews is open to the public, except at night. This would be closed. This one would be closed in the evening hours, but it would be open otherwise throughout. And the remainder of the open spaces are really all the publicly open spaces, and they do include also the city parcel that is a separate project in a way, but part of the considerations here and can be developed as part of this project. But I think there's still some steps to go in the city acquiring the property and moving ahead on it. So let me spend a minute because Joe talked about diversity. Diversity is really underlying this project in many ways, but placemaking is also a very major premise of what we're trying to do. Diversity in terms of architecture, in terms of both the residential building types, in terms of the commercial frontages, but also diversity in terms of open space and recreational opportunities. So it's not just one opportunity, but it is a variety of opportunities that can happen in this area. And I'll start with the central green, which here we have it in cross-section. It's a very comfortably scaled space in terms of being able to have activities within the space in the middle, but well connected to both sides so that the activities can be interchanged between what happens on the building frontages, what happens in the center space, and also what happens if there are special events and, in fact, traffic is closed for a period of time to accommodate a major event in the space. So, the space is very flexible in the way it can be accommodated, but it also, we wanted it to feel very comfortably scaled as a gathering space in the city. Not too big, but also not too small. let's look at the kinds of activities that we see on it. And again, we could only use these from other examples, but the Ramblas in Barcelona, by the way, the same size that we're talking about, much more of a hardscape, more strolling, but potential for gathering, as in this photograph from North Park, a project we designed with Bruce as the developer, actually, in San Jose. This is Santana Row, so it could have a very quiet, also similarly scaled space, just a casual, relaxing, and also the kind of, an event space. It close the streets, do something. This is from the Embarcadero, which we worked on for many years and designed. But there are also neighborly building frontages. We're looking at, there are the potential of stoops from residential. There's commercial development on the ground floor. We have wide enough sidewalks where there can be extension areas on the other sides of the street. And I must say, I love this picture because I think it's Bruce and Joe a little later in life. Coming back to see how it looks. But this one is, but they're much more open. There are many more open spaces, throughout. And I'm including in this discussion the city-owned parcel. Places for dogs, places for informal gatherings, places for putting up a net and playing, volleyball or kids soccer and so on. So there are many opportunities for the different kinds of activities within these open, and they are connected and they're integrated. Finally, I have to say one thing, because this question has come up a number of times about scale of parcels. And I purposefully put the project in the context of Emeryville. And I have to say, from my point of view, I feel that it is a well-scaled. It is not the smallest block in Emeryville, nor is it by far the largest block. And it is well-fitted to the environment. And when we look at these kinds of things, we're also concerned not only about are we creating the proper scale in terms of block pattern, but we're also looking about creating the proper scale in terms of how the buildings integrate with the open spaces and how the building massing ultimately, as it is developed, will give you a sense of breakup of the building form in the proper manner that really works. But this is an actual fit of the parcel into the surrounding area of Emeryville, and we're certainly here to discuss and take your comments. But, at the same time, we look at this parcel as being a unique transit-oriented opportunity within Emeryville, and in terms of the walking distance and connections to the Emery station, in terms of the potential for getting on the go-around and to BART, and certainly even within BART, and the kinds of measures, TDM measures, that Joe was discussing that can be brought in. So really well-fitted site. It's, industrial land that no longer serves that industrial purpose, which is a lot of what Emeryville has done over your history, and made it fit in and create a great place to live, work, play. And I think this is another opportunity to achieve, those kinds of goals. So I'm going to stop and let you ask questions or...
Well, what we'll probably do is open up for public comment, 3 minutes each. But before I do that, does any of the council members have any comments at this time?
I'll save my comments till after the public comment.
So what we're going to do is, yes, you had...
No, I was going to say, I'm going to leave that one
Please.
up so that, if people want to point to it.
So what I'd like to do is have anybody that wants to talk, please stand up here, getting kind of like a queue, and everybody will have 3 minutes to express themselves, and Karen will tell you when your 3 minutes are up. I would assume there's going to be a lot of people that want to talk. Scott, do you want to be the first one? So if you wouldn't mind lining up behind Scott.
Thank you.
Scott Donahue, 1420 45th Street, adjoining the project. I've been on your bicycle and pedestrian committee for maybe 12 years, and seen our city evolve to be a real bicycling city. I just want to tell you that I came from San Francisco this evening. I'm working 2 days a week in San Francisco, and I commute from Emeryville on my bicycle to West Oakland and go to my job, which is at the Cannery. It's near Fisherman's Wharf in that area, and it's 30 to 33 minutes from my door to the door where I work. It's incredibly quick, and I think that if we can get this site to be as connected as I've become on my bicycle in BART to our Bay Area, if we could become connected to West Oakland with the Emery Go-Round and make that a requirement of the project somehow, have that be a component. If we could have the way that people live in the site so connected to walking, bicycling, and public transit that their need to take their vehicle and add more vehicles to the street would be less, because they would want to walk, public transit, or bike. Have bicycles available not in the dark, dank garage, but right in the public space where you meet your neighbor and your bicycle is well protected and it's a real part of the culture, and integrated seamlessly into the project itself, and have that come forward and not be a normal podium-style garage attitude about it, but have the TDMs be a kind of new paradigm for our city that the future users of the site would embrace and would want to come here for that reason, and that these be made to a standard where in the future people could buy these as condos and we would have long-term residents who really want to be here. That would be a wonderful component to have in the site. The kind of density that the site is asking for, if this isn't done and it's a normal podium-style drive-in, drive-out, is pretty significant. And I think that you should require less parking than they have asked for. They could, I think, live with less parking. They might even be happy to have less parking and still have the units served by the parking that's available and unbundle the parking. So renters would pay extra to park, but they also would not perhaps be paying as much rent. Those that wanted to park and pay more would. Office users could have some space available the same way, but by having less parking, it would encourage the site to have less vehicle trips, but still be integrated in our wider region.
Thank you very much, Scott. Appreciate that. Okay, who's next?
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, citizens of Emeryville. My name is Rachel Bryan. I'm with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. I'm a journeyman electrician, and I currently work for my local as a community liaison, compliance, and governmental relations rep. I also sit on the executive committee of the Alameda Labor Council and help to represent 100,000 working families in Alameda County. I'm here tonight to highlight the importance of local hire. Local hire ensures that tax dollars are invested back into the community, lessens environmental impact of commuting, and strengthens community involvement. And most importantly, it preserves employment opportunities in construction. Policy to implement local hire gives the citizens of Emeryville the best value as well as the most protection. This project should move forward with policy in place to make sure that locals go to work first. Residents of Emeryville, Berkeley, Oakland, Alameda, and San Leandro. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
And good evening. Roy Blackshire, Emeryville, 94662. I stand before you this evening to share that I am excited and elated that this development is coming to Emeryville. And as Mr. Boris pointed out, that I caught that it's been 10 years in the making. Having said that, I feel Emeryville should strike while the iron is hot. We have the opportunity to bring forth a lot of new technology, one being the PG&E Net Zero, which basically comes in and retrofits existing buildings to save money, to utilize different natural resources. I think that will be a great place for the greenway, bike/pedestrian path, and or the walk path. At nighttime, it'll be there forever. It's something that we don't have to come back and retrofit like the Hotel Valencia in Santana Row, which is happening there, all along densely commercial areas. They're retrofitting. They're trying to save. We have the opportunity to do it now, before it's groundbreaking, so on and so forth. And what better way than to use the experts who do it? Not a fly-by-night company that comes in, utilizes, saves a buck. Let's, while we have the chance, make it nice, long enduring for Emeryville. Again, Roy Blackshire. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would you mind signing in? Actually, I'm going to ask everybody, when you come up, after you're done speaking, would you please sign in? That'll help Karen a lot, so she won't yell at me after we're done. Because this is my last meeting, and I don't like to be yelled at my last meeting. Good evening.
Good evening. Hello, my name is Brian Azevedo, and I'm a sheet metal worker. And I just wanted to talk about this project. I think it's a good project, and I just wanted to talk about what I think we should have area standard wages. I think they're important, so we could make fair wages to live in the area that we live in, you know, because the Bay Area is an expensive place to live. So I think that's basically it.
Well, thank you for that. Okay, who's next? Good evening.
Good evening. My name's Kate Rudder. I'm from 4230 Halleck Street, so part of Blue Star Corner. And I wanted to just speak on behalf of a couple of my neighbors who were particularly interested in the garage entrance. And I'm glad to see that that's been at least verbally kind of addressed. I'd also like to reinforce what my neighbor said about the transit. So we've been able to go down to one car because of the good connections with AC Transit, with BART, and with the Emery Go Round. And we're looking forward to car sharing is helping us be a zero-car, all biking, walking family. So whatever you can do as well to reflect that kind of burgeoning trend, I think is very important. I also wanted to speak a little bit to, as the project goes forward, especially around the areas adjacent to the railroad track. Eyes on the street is such an important component for public safety and kind of accessibility to just having the architecture reflect that people are kind of keeping an eye out for the activities in the neighborhood. We've had a couple incidences of drug busts in Sherwin Avenue, and I know how important it is to have two things: a good walkable area where people can walk their dogs and some dog amenities. We get a lot of traffic that way, and also just having eyes on the street that are willing to call or to kind of step in as needed. And lastly, I'd just like to reflect that any of the verbal commitments or things really be written in to all development documents with pretty severe consequences when things slip through or just kind of don't happen. I've seen that happen in the past, and that's certainly something that the community that I'm kind of speaking for, as well as myself, will be watching with an eagle eye. So good public kind of accountability on that would be much appreciated. That's my comments.
Thank you very much. Okay. Who's next? Well, I know this guy.
Good evening, and thank you for your time. My name is Matt Maloon, and the main thing I wanted to touch on was that we have an opportunity here to promote training of young people in this area. There's a choice between sometimes on construction jobs where the workers that actually build the jobs just kind of throwaway jobs where they're not actually engaged in learning a craft and a trade. An important part of learning a construction craft is on-the-job training. And this project is an opportunity to help young people learn a craft that they can have throughout their working lives. And so it's an opportunity we shouldn't miss, okay? And so we have a choice, and I'd like to see that thought included in this project.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Okay. Who's now next? The whole bunch of people out there. Oh.
Just very briefly.
Yes.
Michael Murphy. I've been a resident of Emeryville for 40 years, right across the street from this project, and I watched the utilization of Horton Street by bicyclists increase and be enhanced, but also at the same time, the traffic flow has hugely increased. It's a constant flow. That's normally a bike path of some sort, but it's really dangerous. The traffic flow is huge. With the impact of the traffic being brought in by this project, I wonder what's going to happen to, I mean, you know, everything I've been hearing said this is a bicycle-friendly project. It's designed to get the bicycles in and out and move around, which means they're going to be bicycling around that very dangerous and increasingly dangerous street as the traffic increases. What I heard earlier was a brief comment suggesting that the city had considered mitigating the flow of that street, which would hugely enhance both the safety and the practicability of that street. I don't know whether that's actually going to happen. I don't know what status that is, but I stepped up only to heartily encourage that. You know, because that's the major artery to all of these projects, to all the communities in here, and it is, despite being designated a bike-friendly path, it is not. Anything that can be done in the facilitation of this project to enhance that would be hugely appreciated by the neighborhoods. And I think once every Friday or something, we get like 1,000 bicycles coming down Horton Street. It's like, what? It's like nuts. You step out there and they just keep coming and coming and coming. And it's a statement that this is a pathway that's used hugely by the people, by the bicyclists that use it. As long as that can stay in the forefront of your mind while you're developing this as something that can be done to both enhance the project and enhance Emeryville, it would be hugely appreciated.
Thank you very much. Okay, anybody else on the subject?
Hi, Judy Timmel. Speaking on behalf of Residents United, a group of residents from all over the city, and we got together and we have met with Joe Ernst and others from the developers, and we have presented them with our priorities, and I'd like to just reiterate them to you. I'd like you to know there is a lot of resident support for the labor agreements of local hire and area standard wages. I know you hear a lot just from the unions, but we do support, our group does support these practices and agreements. Secondly, in the housing, we're very happy to see there's family-friendly housing. I didn't hear too much about affordable. I wanted to make sure that was included and really affordable, because it would really enhance our schools and the ability of people who work in Emeryville to live in Emeryville if we had more affordable housing. Pedestrian and bicycle access, it looks excellent. We want to reiterate that Horton Street should be maintained either as a bicycle boulevard or as bicycle pedestrian only. And when we are talking about subsidies for education, please let's not forget about early childhood education, or the ECDC. Finally, we urge support and subsidies for locally owned businesses as well as locally serving. And we'd like to see the developer actually make sure that the rents are affordable for small businesses. And the Planning Commission has recommended that both sides of the parkway be business related. I think that only makes sense. How can you have a vibrant back and forth walking retail area if you have only one side of the street? I don't think live work is really going to attract that kind of pedestrian traffic. Thank you.
Thank you. So I see we probably have some people here for the Emeryville round. Just a few. Just a few. So Sharon, so whoever else would like to speak about this item, would you please line up behind Sharon so I don't miss you, because there's a lot of people.
Okay, Sharon Wilshire, Community Liaison for the 45th Street Artists Co-op, and I made the same comment at the Planning Commission meeting, but I think understandably as immediate neighbors to this project, we're concerned about the traffic impacts, and partially because of the proposed density and also just because of limitations of the site. Got the railroad tracks on one side, Novartis on the north, and so, you know, really limits some of those access points. So we are in favor of a lower density rather than the potential maximum density. And I know that things keep changing, so I really appreciate that. I'm not quite sure where we are with all that issue right now. This is sort of going on with the initial proposal. But now, just not as the community liaison, but as a 32-year resident of Emeryville, right across the street from the project in an area that maybe it's just my perspective, I consider to be sort of our warehouse arts district in the city. And I'm really very excited about the possibilities for the project and a possibility to enliven a really interesting section of our city and to help bring many of the goals and the spirit of the Park Avenue District to life. To me, one aspect of truly integrating the project at the Sherwin-Williams site into the neighborhood will be access points from many different vantage points. And the existing building, Parcel A, really takes up about 2/3 of the whole Horton Street frontage there. And I don't know if it's possible, I mean, now that it's mentioned that the Muse will be closed at night, if to consider any way in which Parcel A might just have one access point that moves east to west. The same thing for other access points in the project, that they really pull you into that central area, into the green corridor, into the retail area. Just visually, it seems as if a lot is moving sort of north to the south. That's just me looking at this. Also, just briefly, and I know this will all come out in the traffic studies. I don't know how to do the little laser thing, but the access on Horton Street that's just to the north of Parcel B, I had understood when we had the last Park Avenue District meeting that it was a pedestrian access, and I guess it's not. It's actually vehicular now. And there are 2 driveways to the east of that, and I could point them out, but there's a main access from the Artist Co-op, and then just to the north of that is the Novartis exit. So they sort of, are on either side of that. So I presume that whatever those issues are will come out in traffic studies, et cetera. Certainly a concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Okay. Uh-oh.
Good afternoon, Council. Mayor Brinkman. Stephen Keller. I am a member of the Economic Development Advisory Committee and a planning commissioner. And I had a written statement that I was going to make, but after seeing this new revised plan, I have to shift gears here. I think this plan is a worse plan. I think the buildings are way too close together, and the Planning Commission did ask them to break up the parcels to meet with the general plan as a fine-grained city. The planner talked about how he compared this to existing buildings. That was kind of an error on his part, because that's not what we want. We do have big blocks. We have massive places where pedestrians and bike can't get through. That's what we don't want. We don't want to create that here. We want to break up the buildings. So I'm really disappointed to see that these buildings are now bigger and a bigger mass of buildings. I don't understand why we want to disconnect our parks. I don't know why we want parks here, here, and here. I don't know why in the north we want to place a park in the shade behind the tallest building that we're going to have. That park north of that building will constantly be in the shade. So I don't understand how that's a good idea. The design doesn't remove traffic from Sherman. They still have to come in from those streets to get into those new garages. It's going to put more traffic onto the Central Green. I just don't understand how we've improved this project by doing this. We have Halleck Street. It needs to be brought into the picture so we could take cars way north of the site. Why do we want a building and a park to front a railroad track and the back of IKEA and a parking garage? If we had our option in this city to put a park, would our first place be to put it next to the railroad tracks? I just don't get how this whole thing makes any sense. So I'm really disappointed. I was hoping to see something a little better in their redo, and I hope the council really makes that request to them, because I think this has gone south of where it was before, and I don't think it was all that great. Thank you.
Could I ask one favor? We have a lot of, shall we say, older people than me here tonight. So anybody younger than me, would you mind standing up and maybe letting somebody sit down in your seat?
That's nice.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you,
So if you're older than me,
How old are you, Kurt? Yeah. I know your birthday is tomorrow. Today, how old are you?
so all you young whippersnappers, stand up. Sorry we don't have more room.
Is there a TV downstairs?
May, if I may, the TV is on downstairs as well.
Okay, so there is a TV set downstairs that you can also watch this meeting. And then you can be more than, I'd entertain you coming up and for your 3 minutes of comments.
And it's wonderful to see so many people engaged this evening. So thanks for coming and putting up with
Yeah,
the
I
crowd.
mean, this is amazing.
Mayor,
Yes,
keep the doors.
and we have to keep the doors open for
And
for the
clear.
fire official and clear.
Don't stand in the doorway.
So please come on in, sit down. Buzz, help me a little bit. Get some of these people in here.
Do you think Emery-Go-Round folks could go downstairs and watch until this?
No, Reverend Bullets. Please.
Well, they're already up here, but
Well, they need some of them need the elevator, so
Yeah,
it's
some of them.
harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we can work it out. Okay, is this Ken Bukowski?
Yes, Ken McCown.
Good evening,
Hey,
Ken.
I'm excited about this project. I think people have asked for a lot of things for the community, and I hope we can all accomplish them. Somebody's going to have to decide how much profit this developer can make to sustain this project. Because if you limit the road and you limit the size of the buildings and you subsidize everybody and then you have affordable housing, it just doesn't seem like there's going to be enough money to go around. So I think somebody's going to have to decide what a level of profit is and then work backwards to figure out what you can have and what you can't. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Now, is there anybody else that would like to speak about the Sherwin-Williams site? Okay, Brian. Anybody after Brian?
Yeah.
Two. Now we got two. Is there a third? If there's a third, please line up over here. We got three. Is that it? Okay, thank you. Yes, Brian.
Okay. So this project has downsides for the residents and the neighbors, and it has upsides. But I think everybody here should understand one thing that hasn't been discussed here at all, and that is the city of Emeryville is going to make essentially no money annually from this project because it's a very resident heavy project, and residents the city doesn't make money on residential projects. As a matter of fact, the city of Emeryville actually loses money in the aggregate and on average on residential projects, a little bit. Now this project is mostly residential, has some retail, a little bit of commercial to offset the losses perhaps. But what we're really talking about here is that the city is going to make no money off of this project. So the fact that we're going to make no money, I think, compels us to insist that the downsides of this project be mitigated to a greater extent than they are. So the downside, of course, is the extreme amount of traffic. So our lives, the residents' lives, the neighbors' lives are really going to be impacted negatively by the huge amount of traffic this project is going to generate. It's basically 10% of our city suddenly now put in here. So it's a huge glut of cars. Since we're not making any money off of this project, I expect the developer to show more upside, and there's just not enough upside, frankly. It just looks like a standard Emeryville project in terms of the upside. And it's just not enough, frankly, to offset the downside and the fact that we're not making any money. So we're not making any money, so why do it unless there's plenty of upside for the residents? They haven't shown that. Okay, here's some of the things we could mitigate this glut of traffic. AC Transit buses passes in perpetuity for the residences. Emery-Go-Round stop at the project site, not just making an effort, but getting it in writing and getting it guaranteed. Emery-Go-Round to West Oakland BART, of course, has been talked about. That's critical. I think we should ask the developer to donate money to the South Bayfront bicycle pedestrian bridge that goes over the railroad tracks to the Bay Street Mall. We don't have enough money to do that bridge. Here's our chance to leverage this really valuable site to get this bridge, this bike pedestrian bridge built. So I think you should demand that. The developer should donate money to study the Horton Street Bike Boulevard level 4 and then level 5 traffic calming, because the city doesn't have enough money to conduct these studies, we're finding out, and it's critical that we have this bike pedestrian boulevard. So those are some of the ideas. I've got more, but I ran out of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I think we have 3 more on this item.
Hi, my name is Tim Curran. I'm a longtime resident directly across the street from Parcel A. I wrote you earlier today about my concerns about transportation demand management. I'd like to address why I'm concerned about that. While there have been offerings and there are ideas floated about, when I look at the presentation of the plan and I look at the public benefits that have been offered to the city, for instance, maintaining Parcel A. While they are maintaining Parcel A, I'd like you to notice that they are shrouding 50% of Parcel A's historical presence by Parcel B and calling it a muse, a very narrow area. They're not really giving a full public benefit to Parcel A, to its historical significance. They're crowding it with architecture. Similarly, if you look at the city parcel of the park along the railroad tracks, that's gone back and forth for a while, and it's defined by the remedial features that have been put on the land, by the poor maintenance and the destruction of the land by Sherwin-Williams. So they've designed their plan and also made excuses for it because of the damage they've done to their own property. So given that sort of outlook, when I look at this proposal, when I hear things about TDMs and whatnot, I'm very skeptical that once the TDMs proposals and whatnot go through staff and go through the whole proposal, that they get watered down and that we get something like Parcel A, a muse, a narrow alleyway on what should be a nice open feature of the historical building. It'll be a benefit to the developer, but most likely it won't be a benefit to the city. I'd also like to say, as I said in the letter, that traffic is going to be a very big problem, as the planning commissioners noted many times. It'll be a traffic problem that all the city's going to have to deal with. It's one feature that's maintained, that's been throughout the presentation, is the arrows coming and going from the site. And look at them and where they go. And the city is going to have to make hard decisions about how to handle that traffic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think we had one more speaker. Are you the last?
Good evening. Teresa Kaunauskas. I live at 4333 Holden Street, the 45th Street Artist Cooperative. I've been a resident for 25 years. I am a mother, a walker, a bicyclist, and a driver. And I just wanted to reiterate that you have good public accountability for this project. You have a holistic approach to the transportation planning, that you safely accommodate all the users of roadways, including bicyclists, pedestrians, transit riders, and children. Our concerns are density, the transit options, fewer parking options, inclusion of pedestrian overpass, and a continuous flow for bicyclists, which will emphasize having less danger for them. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's it. I'm going to close the public comment. Is there, how would the council like to proceed? Ruth, you want to go first?
I have comments, yeah. Well, first of all, where's Joe? Let's see.
Oh.
There you are. I want to thank you for
Open spot right there, Joe.
for heeding public comment and already making some changes and tweaks based on the input that you've gotten from the community so far. I appreciate that responsiveness. I want to mention something that hasn't been talked about yet, but when I see the central green, it reminds me of a very narrow way at the public market that has a well-known wind tunnel effect. And when you have two long buildings without enough air circulation and breakthrough, to me, that's a recipe for that green and that middle area that you want to be active to not be active, because it'll be so unpleasant to be there, especially in the afternoon prevailing winds as they whip up. Oops, I have to find my comments here. So that's the first thing. I also want to appreciate the large number of 2- and 3-bedroom units. I don't think there's been a project of this size that's come along that's had more bedrooms. And I've said this publicly, I'll say this again, I think Emeryville has more than enough studios and one bedroom, so I would hope that we wouldn't see that in any appreciable way in this project. The central green, again, aside from being blown around in the afternoon, looks like a fancy driveway, but I'm not really sure how that middle space could be used. I would like to see the city park not on the back side of the project, but brought inside, and move the building C closer to the tracks, and move the city parcel and have the city do some kind of land swap so that this whole project isn't so angular. To me, a building along the tracks is a better edge, and moving the city park inside makes it easier to patrol. It puts more eyes on the park. Right now, that just looks like a nightmare to patrol at nighttime along the train tracks and along at the corner where Halleck Street comes in. So I would love to see a bunch of those buildings and the site plan shifted around that way. One of the speakers spoke about creating a break between the edge of parcel A, the existing building, and to create another east-west circulation element. And I think that edge along B2 is ripe for another throughway of ingress and egress. Questions not for today, but for a later day, are what kind of LEED standards, if anything, will be applied? Do you want to put solar panels on the roof and generate some power? Let's see, what else? The last thing I'll say is to have the, second to last thing I'll say is that I would hope that the Park Avenue Overlay District design guidelines would be used in force. I fear that the PUD process is a way of kind of working their way around the overlay district guidelines. I wouldn't want to see that happen. And I'm really glad that the Alameda bicycle guy, I don't see him right now, but has already expressed an interest in coming. I think that's a unique blend of a retail use that actually might have a chance of working. Many buildings and projects have been conditioned for a corner cafe that never happens, and it's not viable. So the fact that you have a bike shop, a cafe, various elements in there, the more you could throw into your entrepreneurial endeavor, I think the greater viability you're going to have. So just to condition another corner cafe that doesn't happen, we can't support so many corner cafes that we've already approved in this town. And lastly, this project, especially if you're looking at long frontages, would be really nice to have townhomes as part of the design. I used to live in a townhome complex here that went from 4 children to something like 20 when I left living there. And townhomes could be family-friendly housing, and even if they come close, then families make it work. So perhaps parcel C or one of the parcels, the longer parcels, could be designed as townhomes. I think that could be very attractive.
That's it. Nora?
Yeah, Ruth, I happen to agree with you on the green area. Don't sit down, Joe. We need your expertise here. You're on the hot spot tonight. Let's start with parcel D. having that green space in the shadow is just a bad mistake. If you move it to the south of Parcel D, then you have a really much more expansive park, especially if you follow on with Councilmember Atkins' suggestion that we work out a deal with the city, that city open space be put into the central area. That's a rather narrow area now, and that means that Parcel C would be slanted toward the railroad track. Right. The whole idea is to get a usable green space in the middle of this project. And if you move the Parcel D green space and you move the city to the middle, then we're going to get something that has some substance to it. Right now, it's just a dib here, a dib there. Doesn't do it for me. So that's one thing. And that is a really important thing because it speaks to the quality of life, not just now and not just for the people in these units, but for the surrounding neighborhood. And then the other issues, of course, we've all beat this to death. This is the traffic. We've got to address that. We've got to analyze that traffic study. The TDMs and the consideration of the TDMs, absolutely important early on in the process. Sure. And then on the public benefits, staff has asked what kind of public benefits. One of the things that I'm particularly interested in, and we had labor representatives coming up before us today, is the training of our youth in these specialized trades. If there's some way, as this project moves along, that we can incorporate some type of help for our young people who really are kind of neglected by the trades right now. So that's a high priority to me. The other thing is on local hire. The young lady mentioned some cities that would be included. I look at it more, this is a huge project, and you're going to need really good craftspeople, really good laborers. I would propose that local hire means the Green Corridor, which Emeryville was in on starting, and that goes from Richmond all the way down to Fremont. And so that's a local hire. We're all here together in the East Bay, and we want to make a good economy in the East Bay. So that's the few of the comments that I have.
Do you, just quick, do you want me to address these, or want our team to address them?
No, just make note.
Stand here.
Just stand.
You can sit down, actually, if you'd like. It's fine. Either way, it's fine with me. So I really appreciate actually the comments of the public. Particularly, I think everyone's really improving this project as we go. I've seen changes already, and I see more changes, and I appreciate the council members who have spoken. I agree with what I've heard. I haven't heard anything that I disagree with. So I also want to address that quality of life issue that I think we find so important, and how it extends beyond the people who will in the future live here or the people who live near here, but it goes also to the process and the construction. And so I want to echo the labor agreement ideas, the local hire. I think Green Corridor is a good way to define it, or East Bay. But I would like to see the youth engaged as well. I know there's some fabulous apprenticeship programs, and if we could make sure that Emory Unified is plugged into that as well, and other youth who have already graduated from our schools as well. I would like to ask for a minimum of 20% affordable units, and I feel like you made a mention to that, but I didn't hear a number associated with it. I'd like to ask for a minimum of 33% of the units to be ownership. And I know, the market changes and rentals are hot right now, but in terms of the growth of our town, it's important to have that mix as well. And so the fact that you're differentiating the different parcels, I think, will make that something that's doable. Very pleased to hear about 55% larger than one-bedroom units. I tip my hat to you for including that. I had asked for 50%, so I'm really pleased to hear 55. I agree with a higher building on the north end. I'm concerned about that shade issue for a beautiful park. That would be a shame, I think. And I'm not actually afraid of density and height on this site. I know there are differing opinions in town, but the greater the density, the greater the height for one portion, and this portion, parcel D, if it's all the way at the north end, is actually no one else is immediately impacted. Obviously, views and shade, et cetera, are impacts. But the higher it goes, the more open space can be available to the rest of the community. I want to tip my hat again for showing Horton Bike Boulevard with the diverter. I think that makes your project interesting, unique. By dividing the vehicle access from the south and from the east or north, I think neither side, the neighbors on either side will feel half of those impacts. It's hard if someone were living in parcel D to insist that they only enter on Horton unless they actually can't get through on the north-south. And so this is a decision that has not yet been made by our city. I know our BPAC has talked about having different kinds of traffic calming. Horton Bike Boulevard clearly needs help in reducing cars, and some people spoke very eloquently about that tonight as well. So that's a decision by the city, but by showing it in your plans, I feel like you're taking that seriously, and you're showing that this project works with it as well. So I appreciate that. Someone else mentioned this, but I think this project is so significantly impacted by bike and pedestrian access across the train tracks, and that's the ever elusive South Bayfront Bike Ped Bridge. The city has some money set aside for that from redevelopment, which went away. It's in an escrow account pending our state's appeal of the lawsuit that we won on Bike to Work Day that past May. And so we're waiting for that money to be available for us to continue. That bridge has been planned for more than 10 years, as I understand it. And it will not be enough money, I'm sure, after all of this time to build it. And so I think a significant contribution from this project, because the impacts are so significant to this project as well, would be appropriate. I appreciate the Easy Pass, which is the AC Transit bulk purchase passes. Transit passes would be a wonderful TDM measure to include the bike amenities you've mentioned, ample spaces for parking, bike parking that is easily accessible, as has been mentioned this evening as well. I feel that all of those are essential, actually, to mitigating the traffic impacts. There are street improvements that could be part of the public benefits as well. Those could include Sherwin Avenue itself, which has a rather odd curb in the middle of the road, and Halleck, and the cost of putting in a permanent diverter also on the Horton Bike Boulevard. The very southern edge of the project, which has been reduced in height in response to neighbors, I don't have the dimensions in front of me of the buildings that it faces, which is across Sherwin Avenue on the west side. So that's the 1500 Park Avenue. What the height, that building has step backs as the mass goes up in the middle of the building. And I just want to be, I can't remember if 55 or 45 is the final number. It shows 55 on here. Mm-hmm. That matches across the street. I'm just not sure what the height is on the other side.
Yeah, the height across the other side is in the upper 40s, depending on, to 50, mm-hmm. depending on where you are on the street, because the street has slope to it. Mm-hmm. But if you go look on Horton Street, building parcel A is 41 feet tall. Mm-hmm. Across the street, the co-op building is about 17, 18 feet tall, mm-hmm. and the building to the south of 45th is about 22 feet tall. And if you stand on that so you've got some big differences in height there. If you stand on that street, it still feels very comfortable. It feels very nice. You've got the trees. So those differences in height don't create an uncomfortable situation. So we believe that 55 feet versus 55 to 50 or upper 40s is negligible. You might not even notice it. You know, our goal is to step it back far enough so people on the street don't see the portion that goes up higher to 75.
So that's key, I think. And maybe that street portion should only be 45, and there could even be incremental up to the 75. So it not only has to do with the height, in my opinion, and how it matches the other side of the street, but it also has to do with how close the building comes up to the sidewalk and that sense of space. So it's a vertical space, but it's also horizontal space. And in my opinion, that height on Sherwin should really only be your 41 or 45 and not a 55. And I think a good architect would see that matching the character of the neighborhood across the street is important there. Let's see. I also am not afraid of the density. I mentioned, a taller building, which is fine with me. I feel like the density is what's really important to support the retail and the mix of tenants that you hope to bring as well, that we hope to see there. In terms of other contributions, it's been mentioned, the contributions to Emery Go Round, which is kind of a part of your package. The unbundled parking, which is wonderfully required in our town. Car share on site. I mentioned the bike amenities and the shared parking within the site. So I also am someone who firmly believes in reducing the parking and finding ways to have parking uses, residential, office, and commercial overlap. We don't need separate parking for each use. And that actually extends, I've noticed, through the Park Avenue district plan to the neighborhood uses. So this is one neighborhood in itself, but actually because it is so close to the Artists Co-op and to other uses across Sherwin Avenue, I know that right now there happens to be the use of a badminton club, which has parking needs at a certain time of day that seem to overflow and be more than is kind of usable on the street. So seeing other uses across the street that could share that parking and not just having the boundaries of the mix of uses on the site. Finally, I think the best way to manage parking, and if you are doing less parking on your site, there will be overflow, and that's the fear of the neighborhood, is having spillover onto the streets and impacting residents. So I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know how far off in the future, but I feel that Emeryville has to get real about our free on-street parking and making sure that we manage that parking well so that everybody can have use of that parking, all the different uses, whether you're a resident or you're a customer or you're an employee, but making sure that we really manage that. Someday that may include charging for parking on the street. I think that's actually much kinder than giving out tickets. And so there is a certain investment that's required, capital, to put that in place. And this project would certainly be a wonderful, this would be a great opportunity to contribute to something like that with the community's input, of course. I think I want to echo one other comment about the safety and visibility. I'm not sure what the answer is, but I want to be sure that any public space and the green spaces are viable, are visible, are able to be safe places for people. So however that can work into the design. And I have two other items. One is the parcels, the north-south, parcel C and parcel B. Again, I know these are massings. They just show kind of where the buildings go, but I feel strongly that there should be east-west access, and parcel C may end up being 3 or 4 buildings instead of just one large building. I think that would help with the wind tunnel concern, and would certainly help with pedestrian access and make it feel like a fine-grained city, which is one of our goals in our general plan. When Meru presented the flow of the process earlier, she talked about how the final development plan will only go to the Planning Commission. It can be appealed to the City Council. And there was a community meeting in brackets, which kind of implied, I think, that it's an optional. And I would just, given how open you've been to community input, I would strongly recommend that you include a community meeting at that point. There will be more thoughts and more opportunities then for people to weigh in. So with that, I'm done. Thank you.
Are you ready, Jack?
I am, but there's mostly a lot to echo from what's been said up here. For me, it's important that we have a project labor agreement for this development. I want to see area standard wages. Apprenticeships are also very important to me. The concerns about the location of the green space, I share those, and I think that the land swap is a good idea and should be thought through with staff. There isn't enough east-west access, so I'd like to see the buildings broken up a bit more. If you could remind me, Joe, how many 3 bedrooms and how many 4 bedrooms did you have?
Right now, we have greater than 10% or 10% 3 bedrooms.
3 bedrooms. Do you have any 4 bedrooms or no? I can't. I thought maybe.
Haven't
thought about that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. But I am glad to see that we have more 3 bedrooms. To me, this would be a very nice place to live with your family. To have this much kind of green space to access, to have the bike amenities close by, to have your shopping needs that are walkable, to potentially and hopefully have that bridge going from the end of 53rd Street. I am glad to see that you're including the family-friendly units, but I want to also emphasize that those need to be, there needs to be some affordability built into the 3-bedroom units as well. I think that what you've done here with the diverter on Horton Street is good. That we need to calm the traffic on Horton Street, and people are biking more and more, and they need this kind of commuter throughway through our town. Right now, people are using San Pablo Avenue, which is not a great street to cycle on. And I would like to see Horton Street preserved as a bicycle boulevard, and I want to see it thought of as kind of a main bicycle commuter corridor within our town. I'm also interested in the ownership units, the mix of ownership units. I understand that maybe the condo market hasn't picked up the same kind of steam that the rental market has, but I think for the future of our city, that people want to live and remain in Emeryville, and that increasingly they're being priced out by the escalating rental costs, and that we could really use some more ownership housing in town. So that's also important to me. In terms of small businesses, I'd like to see, if it were possible, some co-ops or worker-owned businesses within the site, because I would like us to get away from the low-wage retail jobs. We have plenty of those even within and proximate to this neighborhood. So that's something I'd like you to think about as well. I do want to thank you for the many meetings that you've conducted, and your openness, your willingness to talk and be available. And like I said, I think that there's a great deal of interest in this development and this parcel right now. That the community has a lot of kind of hopes around what this is going to look like and be. not just for the neighborhood, but for the entire city. So I want to thank you for reaching out to the public so much, and I hope that you do have that community meeting as you move forward as well.
Okay, I guess I go last. And first thing I have to say, I think in the long run, this is going to be great parcel, great development for both you and for the city. But something that can make it really better is a win-win for both of us, and that's the bridge across the railroad tracks. I think that's very important. I also believe we have to do everything possible to keep people out of their cars in this one, so I would also go along with Jennifer as far as restricting or looking at the parking requirements for this job. I believe parcel C needs to be staggered or something, has to be done there. It looks too big, because I agree with Ruth as far as the wind. But something else I also believe is that this project is only 2 blocks from Oakland. So we have to, I keep saying if Emeryville is going to get better, we have to help Oakland get better. So I mean, a lot of these jobs, there's a Mandela Training Center in West Oakland where there's a lot of youth looking for jobs. So I mean, I think it comes hand in hand. If we can use work, get youth to work on projects like this, bring them into the trades, we start improving our area, which improves West Oakland. And so, I mean, the viability of this project really is on the safety of all those residents and making sure that that corridor that we don't control in Oakland is a safe corridor, because I see this project to me as the transformation of Emeryville by people that are outpriced in San Francisco. The selling point for you is going to be that they can move to Emeryville, they can be at work quicker living in Emeryville than living in San Francisco, and they can save some money. So those people that are moving here, our first wave, I'm going to say, are going to be young. They're going to be on bicycles. They're going to be used to transportation, public transportation. So I think it benefits both of us if we work towards that direction as far as meeting those needs for those people, and also working as far as the requirements to stabilize the people that will be moving there and staying there, and so that they have some affordable housing, and they also have some housing that's large enough to raise their families in. But I'm excited about this, and I too want to thank you for all that you're putting into this project. It's been a long 10 years for you. You've listened very closely to the residents of Emeryville, and I just want to make sure that Charlie Bryant, are you happy with what you've heard tonight, or is there anything specific that you're looking
now,
for?
Charlie?
I'm not the one that has to approve this project.
Well, Charlie gave us like 6 or 7 items, and I don't know where we go from here.
Oh, you mean do we have direction?
enough
Is that what you mean? Yes. Yes, we're happy that we have direction.
You have definable
good.
direction. Okay, with that, I'm going to end this meeting. Thank you very much. And I think some people are going to be leaving and some people are going to be coming in, or
Give a minute for the kind of
yeah, let's have a couple
changeover
minutes
here.
of changing of the guard.